all of the resources that the larger user group community provides. They have conferences and webinars. There's a career, and they also have a forum on their website. So I just wanted to plug that website. That is. Z, would you switch to the next one? Awesome. Okay, so what is the Power Platform? I think probably most people on the call are familiar with the Power Platform, but we just wanted to mention it. The Power Platform is this low-code, no-code platform that is built on Office 365. And the real key, or that maybe the founding components of the Power Platform are Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate. We've now been joined by Power Virtual Agents. And in this group, we focus mostly on Power BI, but you will definitely hear us touch on these other products as well. In our meeting last month, we had a really cool Power Apps demo at the beginning of the meeting. So I just wanted to mention that these exist. You'll hear us talk about them. And we're also going to share resources with you for how you can access them and get started with them. Z, would you mind going to the next one, please? Okay, so upcoming events. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of our local groups. The original idea behind these user groups, we never recorded our meetings. We always met in person. And the whole point of it was really to network and to talk through maybe challenges you were facing or things that you were experiencing when you were using the Power Platform. So the idea has shifted a little bit now that we've gone virtual, and it's been wonderful because we have access to amazing speakers and amazing people asking great questions from all over the world. But I did want to plug our local user group. So we have a local Power Apps and Power Automate group, and they're meeting on the 24th of this month. And we actually have a slide where I will have Jamie plug their upcoming meeting. So that'll be next. We also have a really active D365/Power Platform user group. They're also meeting on the 24th, although I'm not sure if the times are overlapping. So we'll have to check into that, but you can take a look at their websites and see what topic interests you and potentially go there. We also have an active SharePoint user group that meets monthly, and their next meeting is on July 9th. And then we have a newer user group that's local that a few members of many of these groups are also members of. I know Jamie, who's on the line, is a member of this one as well, and that is the Power Apps for Government user group, and they do presentations across the Power Platform spectrum as well, but focused on government, which of course many of us work either in government or government adjacent in DC. So the links to these groups, they're actually all on Meetup right now. You can also find them on the Power Platform site. But the links are in the slide deck, which I posted in the comments of the meeting for today. Alrighty, Z, I think next slide is for Jamie. Jamie, do you want to tell us a little bit about the June 24th meeting?
Yeah, thank you so much. Great, so glad to be here. Thank you all. Just a little quick plug. The Power Automate and Power Apps user group has got Microsoft's Greg Hurlman coming in to do a virtual session on building custom components for Power Apps. This is a level 300 session, so if you're a developer or you know a developer or you want to get into development, if you want to know more about how you can create custom controls in Power Apps, this is a cool session. Come on, it'll be all hands-on, interactive. You can ask questions from Greg, who actually helps build this product. So yeah, hopefully to see you guys there.
Awesome, thanks. Level 300, I'm not quite ready for that, but I'm sure a lot of you on the call are. So we look forward to seeing you at that next event. The next thing that we wanted to plug are job opportunities. Every couple of months, we have recruiters that reach out to us with job opportunities. We had some announcements last month, and I would like to know, is there anyone on the line that has any job opportunities? Do we have any recruiters on the line today? Okay. No recruiters at the moment, but We like to post job opportunities as they come across to us. So keep an eye out for an email that comes from the Meetup site where we'll blast out new job opportunities. There are quite a few of them that I've seen these days, so keep an eye out for that. I am noticing we've got people from all over the world and all over the US joining in the chat. So hi, everybody, welcome. Paul, do you want to mention anything about your job posting?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Yeah, looking to bolster my team in Sri Lanka and looking for someone with skills based in Sri Lanka. I saw Reza did launched a user group in Sri Lanka recently, and I've asked a couple of my engineers to head along to that. But also looking to add people to the Sri Lankan team as time goes on.
Thank you. And Paul, I might follow up with you afterwards and get your contact information, and we can tweet that out from our user group Twitter account as well to kind of broaden the reach there. Oh, and Reza's on it. Perfect. Cool. Okay. And last but not least, we are always looking for speakers. We want to feature our members first, of course. So we're always looking for 5 to 10 minute demos that can lead us into our featured presentation. And then, of course, if you are feeling brave enough to do a featured presentation or to share something you've been working on, we welcome your participation. So if anyone wants to reach out to us, you can reach out to us here in the chat, or you can reach out to us separately. You can find me at shannon@4lbi.com. I'll put my email in the chat. But we welcome anyone to speak and to give it a shot. These user groups are a nice kind of low pressure environment for you to kind of dip your feet into the pool of presenting to see if you like it or not. And we would love to hear from you. Alrighty, so I am going to do a very high level introduction of Reza, and then Reza, I would welcome you to introduce yourself more deeply. But I wanted to just jump right into the featured presentation today. So not only is Reza a regional director of Microsoft, but he also happens to be one of the nicest human beings on the planet. So we are so lucky to have Reza here presenting to us. Reza, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and then take it away?
Thank you. Thanks, Shannon, for a really nice introduction. I really appreciate that. Okay, let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Just a little bit about me. I'm Reza Rad. I'm based in New Zealand, the other side of the world. Pre-COVID-19, I've been working in the airplane, traveling all around the world, Europe, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and US, of course. But after COVID-19, I'm basically sitting in my desk doing most of the presentations remotely. I have authored some Power BI books. One of them is free, available in Red Hat website. Go ahead and download it for free. You can learn a lot of things from it. I do have a lot of blog articles and videos as well over there. If you are interested, go and learn. All of those are free materials, and some video courses as well. A lot of video courses in our academy, which I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. My contact information down here in this slide below. I'll share the slides later on with Shannon so she can share it with you. And thanks again for the opportunity. Okay, let's talk about this topic. My expectation is that this would be probably like about 40 to 50 minutes presentation, but it won't be just me talking. I would have like a couple of stops in the middle of the presentation, checking if there is any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to write it in the chat window. We'll get to that at some specific point of the time. Okay, right. So this topic is about data flow and data sets, how they work together to build a development architecture in Power BI. So I expect most of you knowing about Power BI, what it is. Power BI is a reporting tool. It has a component called Power BI Desktop you use for building reports. And we are talking about a couple of more important components of that called Dataflow and Dataset. Now, to learn these, first you need to understand what is the persona of users using Power BI. If we talk about a single person, single developer who is going to use Power BI to build a solution, right? This might be, let's say, for a whole team of users, or it might be for one user or anything. That doesn't matter. The main thing is that we have like one single developer. And the implementation is going to be like one solution, one let's say challenge to solve, let's say sales reporting or HR reporting, right? In these cases, Power BI works really nice because you can have Power BI Desktop. It's a tool that you download, you build your reports with that, you get data from different sources, you do data mashup or cleanup, removing unnecessary columns and rows, merging your tables from different data sets, building your relationships, write some calculations like this year versus last year, all those kind of things. And then finally visualize the data, publish it to the website, Power BI service, share it with your users. Everything happens in one file. A Power BI file is a file with the extension of PBIX. So everything happens in that, right? Really simple, and it works perfectly fine. It is agile, it is fast to develop. Every time you want to make a change, you just go and open that PBIX file, make your changes, publish it again, and users will have access to that, right? This, however, is not an ideal implementation strategy for a persona of a team of developers. When you have a team of developers, multiple developers working on one solution or more than one solutions, then the scenario is different. You want them to be able to work at the same time, or even if one person wants to work with multiple solutions, that also happens. There are some challenges when you work with one single file. These are some of those challenges. For example, you cannot have multiple developers working with these files at the same time. Like, for example, if I go and build a Power BI file and make my changes, then I want to share it with someone else. If they make some changes, I'm not aware of their changes, right? So they so I should send the PBIX file to them. They make their changes, they send it back to me. I make my changes. There is no easy way to merge those changes, at least as of today, right? It's not an environment for multiple developers to work in parallel together. That means that your Power BI file gets bigger and bigger. You have more tables. You start with 2 tables, 3 tables, 20 tables, hundreds of tables. This means that your model will get complicated. Your file will take a lot of time to load the data in it. Every time you want to create a measure, it takes a lot of time. You will have many visualization pages. It would be hard to go and find something in it. Everything would be quite complicated in that environment. It would be high maintenance implementation, and you would have a lot of duplicates of your codes and things like that. Now, Dataflow is a Power BI component that is helping for solving these scenarios. For example, talking about this specific problem, let's say you want to use one table in multiple files. In Power Query, we call tables query, right? So either query or table. You want to use one table in multiple files. This might happen to you if you have had more than one Power BI implementation. For example, let's say I've been assigned to a task of building a sales report for the sales team. So I went and built a sales Power BI file with customer table, with product table, with sales table, let's say date table. I built the report solutions, everything like that. It took me, let's say, 2 to 3 months to build it, and they are happy with that. Now the warehouse team comes to me and they say, we want also an inventory report. And because this is different report, different analysis question, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and build totally new file, an inventory Power BI file. Now in my new file, however, I have some of the tables that are used in the previous file. For example, in the sales file, I had the date table. In inventory, I would still like to do analysis by date. In the sales file, I had the product table. In inventory, I do need the product table as well because I want to see these products, their inventory movements and things like that. However, I do also have some new tables as well, like inventory movement itself, the warehouse. So there are tables that are only unique for the inventory PBIX file, and there are tables that are kind of common in between inventory PBIX file and the sales PBIX file. So what I'm going to do now, if I have tables that are going to be used in both files, one of the solutions that a lot of people do is that they go to the first file, the sales PBIX file, they copy the script, or you can copy the whole query as well from the Power Query editor, and then in the new file you paste it, right? And that just brings exactly the same table and problem solved. But the thing is that this also brings another problem, because now you have your source code of creating your product table, creating your date table, or any other common tables. Now you have the source code of that in two different places, which means if after a couple of months you realize that you want to go and apply a change in the first one, you have to go and apply a change in the second one as well. And what if you have 5 different files, but if you have 10 different Power BI files? Having a table common in between all of these makes it really complicated, because you are duplicating your source code in every place. And it's not just duplicating the source code, it's not just the maintenance problem, it is also the processing power that you use for processing that table. Let's say you spend like 5 minutes processing that product table. It might have some complicated merge and group by statements in it, so it takes like 5 minutes to process it. And now if you are using it in 10 files, that means 5 minutes for each file, like 50 minutes, right? You shouldn't be doing it this way. So what is the solution for this? The solution for this is Dataflow. Dataflow is, by the definition, Dataflow is a Power Query process that runs in cloud, independent from Power BI. So this independent is really important. Power BI and Dataflow can work together, but it doesn't mean that Dataflow is part of Power BI. Dataflow has its own existence. Dataflow is a component by itself. Dataflow is a service by itself. Power BI can use it, can leverage it, but it doesn't mean that Dataflow is part of Power BI, because Dataflow can be available for Power Platform. It can be available for customer insights. It can be available in other places as well. So the Dataflow uses the Power Query engine for data transformation. Consider Dataflow as a data transformation service. It uses Power Query to do the data transformation. It runs in cloud. It's not an on-premises service. It's just running in cloud. And it stores data in a destination. That is why it is independent from Power BI, because the Power Query that you use in Power BI desktop, that also do the data transformation, but it loads it into Power BI dataset, versus the Dataflow doesn't really load it into the dataset. It loads it into a different destination. So what that destination is, if Dataflow stores the data somewhere, where that is stored. And right now that is Azure Data Lake Storage as a CSV files inside folders. That folder structure itself has a name. We call it Common Data Model. The way that the tables and subtables, the folders and subfolders and the files are built. But it's enough to know that this is stored in Azure Data Lake Storage and it is in CSV format, right? So you might say, where I don't really have the Azure Data Lake subscription, so that means I cannot use Dataflow. No, even with Power BI Pro account, you can still use Dataflow, because when you have Power BI Pro account, you have like 10 GB space in the Power BI website. Part of that space is part of Azure Data Lake subscription internally, which can be used for Dataflows. Examples, demos that I show you today, they will be with Power BI Pro. I won't show you any premium features, but if you have premium, of course, you have more space. If you have your own separate Azure Data Lake subscription, you can connect it to your Dataflow. That is what we call external Dataflow. Those are all possible as well. But just for having a Dataflow, just for working with the Dataflow, you don't really need any other subscription than what you have in Power BI. So what is the end story? Let's say you have Dataflow. Dataflow reads data from different sources, applies transformation, stores it in CSV format inside Azure Data Lake. What is the end goal? The end goal is now in Power BI to get data from that Dataflow. And this will create the separation of these two components, of the data transformation component and the rest of the modeling, which is the modeling, relationships, calculations, and the visualization, because the data modeler can only get data from the result of Dataflow. That data modeler don't really need to know how this table is created, how my product table is built, how the date table is created, because someone else created that in the Dataflow. This person is only going to use it in their model, right? This will create an abstraction, a separation, a decoupling between these two layers, which helps in a lot of scenarios, like that scenario that I explained. When I have the PBIX file, multiple PBIX file using the same file, the same table, sorry. In those cases, I can process that table in a Dataflow. Here you can see that I have my date dimension. This can be product table or any other tables as well, processed in the Dataflow. So it is only processed once, based on the schedule, of course. And the source code is only in one place. And those files are just using the result of this. This way, I don't have duplication of the source code. This way, I'm only processing this file, this table once. Right? Doesn't matter if I use it in even 10, 15, 20 different PBIX file, it would be still absolutely fine because this architecture avoids duplicating of the code or duplicating the transformations. Now, this can help in a lot of other scenarios as well. Let's say your Power Query transformations are quite heavy. Sometimes it takes really long time for your Power BI desktop file to refresh, so your development time is really slow. You can break it. You can push your heavy lifting transformations into the Dataflow. So it does that transformation on a scheduled basis. In Power BI desktop, you just get data from there. You just load data from the result of that transformed data. The overall refresh time is still the same. I'm not saying that this would help the overall refresh time just by this, and that would be still the same. However, your Power BI desktop refresh time would be shorter. As a result, you can develop your Power BI solutions faster rather than waiting for hours for the refresh to finish. There are many other benefits for this. Not every Power BI developer has the luxury of sitting in an organization who has the license for Azure SQL Data Warehouse, Azure SQL Database, or any other database technologies with a powerful ETL tool, the tool for data transformation, to build really like a data warehouse for the Power BI implementation. But using Dataflow, you can actually do that without needing any other licenses. You can have a set of data flows. They are going to build the entities, the tables that you have inside Azure Data Lake as your data warehouse, and Power BI can get data from it. Right. Let me show you a demo of this, and then we'll check if there is any questions. Okay. So the demo I'm going to show you is the usage of Dataflow in this file. Here I have a Power BI file. You see this file has 3 tables in it. Sales table, customer table, product table. Let's say I want to analyze this also by date. So I want to have like a date table as well. Power BI itself has a date table, but it comes only like a limited date table version. like, for example, if I want to have public holidays or fiscal columns or anything like that, that doesn't have that. However, I do have a script for date table, and you can download this script fully from Red Hat blog. That if I use this in creating a new blank query, that will give me a date table exactly here. But I won't be doing it here because that would create the problem of bringing the source code inside my Power BI file. That means later on, if I have another file which needs date table, I need to go and do the same thing in there as well, and changing would be hard because my source code is spread everywhere. I'm going to do that using a Dataflow. So I'm building that date table in the Dataflow, and then I'm going to get data from that Dataflow table over here. To build the Dataflow, you have to go to the Power BI website. Dataflow is not a desktop component. It is a Power BI service component. You can go to an organizational workspace, start with new Dataflow. That's one of the options over here. This will give you, yep, nothing recovered. This will give you this view of creating a data flow. There are lots of details about how to create data flows. I'm not talking about advanced options for that. For now, I'm just talking about a very simple option. Define new entities, which is basically creating a table, right? So add new entities. Now, this is very similar to Power Query in Power BI Desktop. In the Power BI Desktop, when you use Power Query, you see all these different data sources. Here is the same. You see all different sources where you can get data from it. You can choose any of these. Let's say, for example, SQL Server database. You can set the configuration server name, database name. If it is on-prem, choose the on-prem gateway or anything like that. For this example, because I do have this script, right? Let me just copy it. Because I have it, I just go to blank query. Right, blank query gives me the option to create a query, and then I just delete it, paste it here. This is a date table that I can configure, like from which year to which year, what is the start of fiscal year, and things like that. But for now, it is all fine. I can choose the on-prem gateway. For this, I don't really need that because this is not really sourced from anywhere. This is just produced manually. Automatically, sorry, produced automatically. And when I click on next, this will bring Power Query Editor online, which is enhanced a lot in the past few months. This is very similar to Power Query in Power BI Desktop. This is my date table, all the columns, all the rows, all the steps of data transformations I have here. I can call this table date table. Now, this is not just about date table. I can have my product table built here. I can have my customer table built here. I can even have my whole fact table built here, right? You can build as many as tables you want in this environment. It's not just like one table per data flow, right? And there are some functionalities that are premium, like, for example, if you want to use any of these AI insight features, those are premium, but everything you have seen so far I did, they are all available in Pro. So after building this, I save this. And I'm going to call this Washington, DC Park Dataflow. A data flow by itself doesn't really load data in it, unlike Power BI that whenever you close and apply Power Query Editor, it loads data into Power BI. Here you have to actually refresh the data to get data into this data flow, which you can refresh it either manually or with scheduled refresh. Ideal is definitely to schedule it to refresh because you want this to be up to date. But for now, I just do it manually. Now, while that is refreshing, I go back to this Power BI file. I say get data from Power BI Dataflows. Here you see the option, get data from Power BI Dataflows. And if you don't see the option over there, you can come here under more under Power Platform, you see Power BI Dataflows. And when you come here, you actually see that there is also something else called Power Platform Dataflows. I haven't talked about that, but that is also another type of Dataflow. Dataflow is product agnostic tool or service. You can have it in different places. Anyway, I select Power BI Dataflows, I connect to it. It asks for your credential usually, and I already done those things. This will check all the workspaces that I have any data flows on it. And then all the data flows under that workspace. And this is the data flow we've been working with. This is the date table that I've built. Now imagine this persona. Imagine that I am a report builder. I'm a data modeler. I have no idea how to build a date table. But I know that someone already created a date table. That date table exists in a data flow, which I have access to that, right? I can easily come here, select that date table without having any ideas of how this date table actually is built. I just load data into my Power BI file and I use it, right? That creates a layer of abstraction for me, and it decouples the data transformation from the modeling, which makes it really easy for the data modeler to only focus on creating relationships, writing calculations, and for the Power Query developer to go and build the data flow. That decoupling comes with a lot of benefits as well, because then later on, if I want to use this date table in another file, I just go and get data from Dataflow again. I don't need to rebuild this date table. The date table is already created there. Okay. So before moving to the next topic, let's see if there is any questions.
We have quite a few questions, and sorry, we've been chatting a lot while you were talking. So I think just in order that they came in, Jamie, John, Lauren, Jenna, and Vaibhav.
Okay, so is that all of those questions answered, or?
So Jamie, do you want to ask? So Jamie was asking whether or not a data flow can be used to both as like a read and write function. Jamie, did my response to your question make sense?
Yeah. I just wanted to know whether you could read or write to that or not. That was my question. So
at the moment, read only. Do you mean read, or do you mean write into the original data source, or write into the data flow? Where do you mean by write?
Yes. I probably ideally getting it back into the original data source. That would be the eventual preferred, but I don't know enough about data flows. I just know like that it seems to be one way. Everything seems to be one way in Power BI read only. But you know, yes. I do a lot with Power Apps, and I'm more interested in like how can I update the data if I need to.
Yeah, same story for Dataflow. This is more like a read data, transform it, load it into a destination. We call these tools like an ETL tool. They don't really go and change or modify anything in the data source. They just grab whatever data you want from the data source, transform it, but load it into a different destination. Some ETL tools, they give you the ability to like write the result back into the same original source that you had, which can be used for this kind of purpose, but Dataflow doesn't.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Alrighty, and Lauren, you had a question.
Oh, hi, me. Yeah, I was able to schedule a refresh for a report that only connects to Dataflows, but when I also wanted to schedule a refresh for a report that pulls from a SQL database and uses an enterprise gateway, it didn't seem to want to also refresh the Dataflow. And I was trying to Google a bunch of the error and didn't really find one clear answer. So I didn't know if there was like some well-known trick to that.
Right. Did you get an error for that refresh, or it was just not refreshing?
Yeah, no, there was an error. Something about the mashup. I don't know if I can find it.
So your SQL data source was already connected through the enterprise gateway and it was working fine, but as soon as you added the data flow, this didn't work, right?
Well, almost the opposite. I was refreshing with the data flow and then added the SQL database, and that's where the enterprise gateway shows the SQL database with a green check, and it shows the data flow with like a red X under the enterprise gateway. I don't even know if it's supposed to.
You don't really need to select like data flow under your enterprise gateway. You should be able to just jump into the schedule refresh and schedule it.
Yeah, I didn't select it there. It's just showing up as it says data sources included in this data set, and it lists extension and then SQL Server.
So instead of like doing it in the gateway, there is something like a connection under the gateway. Did you went there to set up your data flow credential before going to the schedule refresh?
The credentials seems to accept the credentials. If that's what you mean.
Okay, I think I need to have a look on that. Just send me a message in our website. We have like a contact us section as well. Send me a message from there, or send me an email with a screenshot of what you see. I'll be more than happy to help.
Oh, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yeah.
We had a couple of other questions. John, you had a couple.
Hey, this is Vaibhav. Sorry, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yep.
First of all, big fan of your blog, so I'm really happy to hear you. My question is very simple. So a couple of the reports that we have refresh every 30 minutes using the datasets. Just wanted to know if Dataflow gives me the option of doing the same or a higher frequency.
Yep, you can have exactly the same frequency of refresh you have in your normal datasets, which depends on your Power BI license. If you have, let's say, Power BI Pro, it gives you ability to do like 8 times a day refresh with the frequency of 30 minutes each, exactly similar to normal Power BI dataset. If you have premium, up to 48 times a day with the let's say frequency of every 1 minute, and you can have also unlimited REST API refresh, exactly similar to Power BI license.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A quick question on the refresh for Dataflow and the dataset. As of right now, we still have to, there's no direct connect to the data flow yet, right? In the past, we refresh a data flow. We still have to refresh a data set to bring the data from the data flow into the data set before we can use it.
There is actually, and this is announced, I think, like about a couple of weeks ago, or it might be a week ago. I'm not exactly sure, but we had it in our last Radicat fortnightly newsletter as well. So you can do direct query to Dataflows. However, this is a premium only feature, unfortunately. It might change in the future, I don't know, but it is premium only at the moment, and it is preview. So when it comes out of preview, it might be like available even for Pro.
Got it. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, shall we continue and take the rest of the questions afterwards, I guess?
Yeah, that
sounds good.
Thank
you
you
for posting links, Shannon.
Of course.
Great. Okay, so I'll continue and we'll have another stop to look at more questions. So you learned about Dataflow, a component that gives you the data transformation layer. Now let's talk about Dataset, what that is and how that can help in this whole Power BI architecture. Dataset is not a component of Power BI that is so much visible, so we have to explain it separately. When you build a Power BI report, when you build a Power BI desktop file, you see everything is in one file. When you save it, it is like one PBIX file. So you imagine that everything is like one object, one Power BI file, and everything is just like one file. However, there are two objects in that file. One is a report, one is a dataset. How you can distinguish these two? When you have Power BI Desktop open, if you go to Task Manager, you'll see that there is a task under Power BI Desktop going. There's a service running called Microsoft SQL Server Analysis Services. That is where the data lives. That is where the data loaded in memory. You might have heard that Power BI dataset is living in the memory. So where that in-memory storage is, that is here in Microsoft SQL Server Analysis Services, which is actually installed when you install Power BI Desktop. It is installed with that at the same time. This is where the tables are. This is where the data, their relationships, their calculations, DAX expressions, connection to the data source, all of that lives in this place. We call that object dataset. Report, however, is a visualization, a layer of visualization. This can be charts, columns, column charts, let's say, any other types of charts, slicers, filters, anything like that. These are layers on top of that dataset. You will see this separation much easier when you publish something into the service, because in the service we have a section for dataset and a section for report. So you can easily see that there is like there are two different objects here. For the dataset, you can do things such as schedule it to refresh. For report, you can do things such as share it, right? So now that you know what the dataset is, let's talk about this problem. Let's say you have some report visualizers. Now, who is report visualizer? Report visualizer is someone who doesn't really know anything about data modeling. However, he is good at building stunning visualizations, like putting together charts and visuals together with fantastic colors and very great schema and layout design of the report itself. Now you have 2-3 of these report visualizers. They want to build visualizations on top of your report, but they want to build it at the same time because they are, let's say, building for different types of users and things like that. So how they are going to do that? Are you going to give them a copy of your Power BI file, which has all the calculations, all the DAX expressions you have, all the tables, all the relationships, a copy to each so they go and build their own reports? They can do that, but then the problem is that if you have made any changes, if you have done any let's say new calculations, changed any calculations, you have to send it again to them and they have to now merge that with their visualization changes, right? You have your visualization and modeling in the same solution, which doesn't work, right? So what is the answer for that? The answer for that is shared dataset, right? Shared dataset means a dataset used for multiple reports. The default in Power BI environment is that one dataset used for one report. When you build your Power BI file, your PBIX file, you publish it to the service. This will create a dataset and a report, right? So one dataset, one report. But in fact, you can have that dataset to be used for many reports, 10 reports, hundreds of reports. And that means you can separate the modeling layer from the visualization layer, which is a really powerful approach in building Power BI solutions. So let me show you that. Let's say here, in another workspace, for example, this workspace, I do have some reports, like this is one of those reports that I have, which is movies dataset. It has different movies and their ratings, their sales information, things like that. Now, I'm a report visualizer. I want to build some better visualizations on these reports because these are not, let's say, great visualizations. I want to, let's say, have something for my specific type of user, which makes sense more for them. How can I do that when I don't really know how to build this model or how to work with this model? Every report, when we click on these 3 dots going to be related, it is connected to a dataset, right? So here, this is connected to this dataset. Now, from this dataset, I can click on this and create a new report. That new report that I create would not have a separate dataset. It would have this dataset. This dataset would be shared among this report, this existing, and the new one. That is a way of creating report on a shared dataset. And you can do the same thing in Power BI Desktop as well. Here I can close this Power BI Desktop file, let's say. I open another one. Now, from Power BI Desktop, your users can go and use this option, get data from Power BI Dataset. This type of user we are talking about is a report visualizer. They don't know how to build a model. They have no idea how to build a model, but they are perfect at visualization. They go and say, get data from Power BI Dataset, right? Then they might have access to a bunch of datasets. You see my account has access to many datasets. Some of them I have created, some of them someone else. This is, for example, Layla created. I can go and choose any of these datasets. You also see here a really important thing, a column called Endorsement, which is a way that you can categorize your datasets. This is a labeling system. You can label some of your datasets to be certified, some of them to be promoted, some of them without any labels. This is the concept of gold, silver, bronze reports. You might have heard of that. Like gold reports are those reports that have been tested across different, let's say, reports and things like that. Bronze have been tested, but not that much. And I'm sorry, that was silver. And bronze haven't been tested at all except from the developer itself, right? This is a labeling system. When you publish a dataset, you can go and set up the endorsement for that as well. And by default, those that are certified comes at the top, then promoted, then the rest. Now, in this case, this is a dataset I want. I can create the connection to that. And when I create the connection to that, something changed in Power BI. You see that in Power BI, it says down below here that I'm connected live to that dataset. And when I'm connected live to that dataset, I see the tables and the fields, everything is here. I don't see the data tab. You see there used to be like another tab here in the middle of these two, missed. I see still the relationship, and this is something added new. This is just added this month. Before that, we didn't have that. Now you can at least see the relationship. You can't do any Power Query data transformations here. Those should be done in the model source. You can create a specific type of measure called report level measure, right? So you are limited in terms of your modeling. You can, however, do a little bit modeling, self-service stuff yourself, but mainly you can do visualization. I can say, for example, give me worldwide sales by studio and make it a pie chart, because that's the hardest visualization you can ever get to see something meaningful. You can do any visualizations you want, right? As a report visualizer. Let's say this is a visualization I want, and I save this in my desktop, Washington, DC, POG movies. You can then publish it either to the same workspace or to any other workspaces you want. I'm publishing it to the same workspace. And by the way, you might have noticed that this live connection is a little bit different. This is a new feature added in Power BI Desktop, that now you can have like live connection in a composite way, which is quite powerful. Anyway, I have published that into this workspace. I can come here and find that this is my report. The really nice pie chart over here. When I click on View Related, I can see that this is using exactly the same dataset. And when I go actually to that dataset, let me go to that dataset. This is the dataset. I can go and see View Lineage. This will give me a lineage view of where this dataset is coming from these two web sources. And this is used in many reports, as you can see here, right? This lineage view is quite helpful. It shows that these are all different reports that are used in this dataset. So this is a shared dataset. They are all using the shared data model. If I go and add a calculation, they can all use it. If I go and edit a calculation, they will all get the updated information for that. When I schedule this to refresh, they are all getting up-to-date data I don't need to schedule refresh separately for each of these. My code is not like duplicated across everywhere. As you can see, I separated my visualization layer from my modeling layer. This is another component of the architecture. Using the shared dataset, you can separate these two from each other. Ideally, your dataset should also get data not directly from the data source, but get data from Dataflows. We should have something in the middle here that Dataflows get data from these and then into datasets, which is what I'm going to talk about in the last part, which is the architecture. Okay, so let's see if there's any questions before jumping to the last part.
Reza, there's one question that I really interested if there will be an option to Excel.
Sorry, you breaking up. Which question it is? I can go and check it out.
Hey there, Reza. It was my question.
Oh, great.
This is Corey. I was just wondering, is there going to be an option to connect to Power BI data flows from Excel? I know datasets are an upcoming preview feature.
Definitely there will be an option to connect to Power BI data flows from Excel, and I don't think that would be like far away. Hopefully that will come sometime soon.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Was there anyone else who had questions?
Reza, Paul here again.
Yep.
When you're pulling in from a data flow, if you've established inside the data flow, say a date table using a parameter that's editable for, say, an end date or a start date, will that come across and be editable when you bring it across into a new data set?
No, actually, because like the whole concept of data flow is to pre-process those data. If you have the option to, let's say, change the parameters and then reprocess it again, then yeah, then better to not do it in a data flow, just do it inside a Power Query transformation itself. But use some Power Query custom functions, so at least you don't replicate your code. You just use that function based on these parameters, input parameters, to provide the result. Dataflow won't be the best, let's say, tool for that.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Okay, right. So I'll explain the last part, and then we'll see if there is any more questions. So the last part, the architecture, you now learned about data flow, you learned about datasets, how they are going to work with each other. These are components of a multi-developer architecture like this. Here I can have data flow connecting to different data sources, doing transformations, data transformations, loading it into Azure Data Lake storage in that CSV format as my data transformation layer. The person who builds this is going to be a Power Query person, someone who knows how to do data transformation. Then we have a layer of shared data set, or you can call it shared data model. This would be multiple data marts, multiple Power BI models, let's say one for inventory, one for sales, different things like that. They might share some tables, which is absolutely fine because they are getting their tables from Dataflow, so there is no duplicate of the code. This is where the DAX calculations, relationships, everything like that lives. For this layer, you need a developer who is good at DAX and relationships. And then the last layer would be visualization. This would be Power BI, get data from dataset, and building visualizations. The person who built this layer is the person who is good at building visual components in a report. Don't need to know about DAX or Power Query. So these three types of users, they can work at the same time in this solution. And because this is modular, because this is layered, you can easily replace one layer with something else. For example, in Power BI Word, you have a lot of Excel users. Excel users can connect to the Power BI dataset using analyze in Excel, not export. Export will give you like just offline data, and it is limited. Analyzing Excel is much more powerful. That means that your Excel users can be the third layer of this architecture. They would be the visualization layer. Or you might have this situation that your board of directors decided to use Tableau or ClickSense for some reason. They are good tools for visualization, but they don't really have a powerful modeling engine or data transformation engine, which is fine. Power BI has these components. You can use Power BI for doing the data transformation, for doing the modeling, and then using XMLA endpoint, which is a premium function from Tableau, from ClickSense, from any other visualization tool, you can actually connect to the Power BI dataset. So this layer can be even another visualization tool or services. This is a premium function, by the way, as I mentioned. You can have paginated reports designed for printing, which you can connect that also to the Power BI dataset. So this visualization layer can be almost anything. This multi-layer architecture I'm talking about is not something, let's say, really new. This multi-layer architecture, we had it in BI systems, in data warehouse systems for a long time, from the time that we developed BI system in SQL Server using SSIS, SSAS, SSRS, performance point. Like this architecture is called BI Burger because it looks like a burger, as you can see. So we had this kind of like multi-layered architecture. The benefit of that is because it is multi-layered, because it is modular, you can easily replace one layer with another. This gives you decoupling of layers from each other, and you can develop solutions much better with that. So we are using still the same architecture, but with new components. Instead of using something like SSIS, instead of using something like reporting services or analysis services, these might be hardcore developer tools, but Dataflow is not. Dataflow is like something that a Power BI developer can work with Dataflow as well, or the dataset, shared dataset. These are all Power BI components. So you just need people who are good at Power BI to build this. It gives you a lot of benefits. It gives you that decoupling that I talked about, better refresh time. You can reuse a lot of your calculations. It is ideal for multi-developers. Even one single developer gets a lot of benefit from this because can use it in multiple solutions. Like an overview of what is Dataflow versus Dataset, they both stores data. You might say they both store data, so I can use this versus that. This is not like that. They are not replacement of each other. They are complement of each other. Dataflow is replacement of your Power Query. Dataset is replacement of your relationship and DAX. Dataset can be replacement of your Power Query as well, but that is not the best way of using it because then you don't have this modular or layered implementation. So Dataflow is your ETL layer. Dataset is your modeling layer. Dataflow prepares the data for the modeling developer. Dataset prepares the data for the visualization developer. The person who builds Dataflow needs Power Query skills. The person who builds Dataset needs DAX skills. Dataflow solves the problem of having one table to be used in multiple files. Dataset solves the problems of having multiple report visualizers wanting to use one single Power BI data model. Together, they built that architecture that you have seen. So they are complement of each other. Just before talking about the last part, which is like the last set of questions, everything that I explained to you, I have a blog article and video about that, free, you can go and watch it. I also have a Power BI architecture course, which this part is only like one small part of it, which is available in our academy. We have over 10 Power BI courses in academy, and this gives you a $30 discount for the first month of academy membership. We have like over 180 hours of content, not just Power BI, but everything else. Okay, so what other questions we have?
Thank you, Reza. That was a lot of information.
Thank you.
Really information. Yeah, no, great information. There was a lot of discussion in the chat. Do people want to unmute yourself, turn on your camera?
Yep, let me just. Switching camera. Too many cameras I have here in my.
Looks like John raised his hand.
And we also, Larry wrote a question. Larry Lynn, is that you? Or a case for using data with any Power Query?
Sorry, what was the question?
Larry, you want to unmute yourself? My connection is not reliable.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. My
Yes.
question was, is there a use case for using Dataflow exclusively without any Power Query?
Exclusively not related to
using
Power
that
Query.
as the source of your data without using Power Query as the source of your data? Or do you need to have Power Query if you're going to create a data model?
You mean just getting data from that source?
Yes.
Not doing any transformation. There is a benefit even in that. Like the benefit of that goes to the concept of like, these are more like back old school data warehouse concepts. Let's say if I'm getting data from a transactional system, an operational system, that system is live. Let's say I have users using that system every moment, right? But over the midnight, there are not that many users, so I can have like a data flow, just grabbing data from those sources into Dataflow, right? Without doing any transformation, just getting it there. And then through the day, whenever I want to build any Power BI implementation or anything like that, I use the Dataflow result because I'm not touching the system that everyone is working with. I'm not affecting the load on that operational system. So even if I don't have any transformation, that would still bring some value in some scenarios, if that was the question.
Yeah, it kind of does. I haven't used Dataflow, so I was just trying to get a better handle on it.
Yeah, but you are like all of the things that you are already doing in Power BI using your Power Query, you can do those with Dataflow. However, some users of Power BI, they do all the transformation in SQL Server, like SQL statement and things like that. That is kind of your Dataflow. You can consider it this way if you are going to build those as views or as tables and then getting data from those.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
I have a question. So the last time I looked, if you use a pre-built data set, there is no ability to extend it. Like you can't add your own tables to it. You're kind of stuck with whatever data model somebody else had built. And so I guess one of the distinctions that I see in my own preference for data flows is that I can then manipulate the data. You know, somebody else has built a data flow, but then I can connect to that. I can do my own transformations. I can build out my own data model. Whereas if I connect to a data set, I'm sort of stuck. Like I'm limited by whatever the author of that data model had built. And I can see that in like a financial transaction world where, you know, you've got kind of like a common financial set, but a lot of the work that I do is much more general than that, and connecting and mixing and matching a lot of different data sources. And so I found data flows to be a lot more helpful. Like, does that resonate? Or
yes.
First off, can you validate that my data set assumption is still correct, that you're kind of stuck?
It is changed. So I think, let's say even now you can say this is still the case. You can have like one live connection at the same time. You cannot modify your model that much after connecting to it live, but the ability to like playing with your live connection even after creating the connection is like called Composite Model, that you can even bring like an Excel file and combine it with the existing model you have. This is coming. Like what you have seen right now was part of that I had the model layer connection even in live connection. Previously you didn't have that. So you would be available like later in this year. I think October is the time frame that even have some like some modification on even your live connection. You can have like multiple live connection. Part of that comes from here, part of that comes from there, so that in case if you want to create something like a model for board of directors who want to know a bit of like this model, a bit of that model, you don't have to rebuild everything from scratch. So that part is enhancing, but with that enhancement also it comes with the challenge of governance. Because right now this means that when I create the model, I'm sure that all of those who are going to have live connection to my model are not going to change it. Now, when that feature comes, I have to be careful how they are going to change it, and we should put together like a governance approach around it. But yeah, that is how things are going to move and change.
Cool, thank you.
Cheers.
Reza, I really like and appreciate that you keep hitting on governance. I think, you know, the more we come to use all of these incredible tools, the higher the need for a strong governance strategy. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. That's always my challenge as well whenever I talk with a client. Yeah, one of the biggest problems always is everything to do with the governance.
Are there any other specific questions about maybe something you've been struggling with data sets or data flows, or as anything you'd like to ask? Keith, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, we have had to change our database and create a new database based on the old one, which means that all of my 80+ Power BI dashboards and reports need to be updated. The only way that I've currently figured out how to do that is to go into each report, change the query to the new database, and republish it. Is there a better way to do that? Is there a different way to do that? Would Dataflows help me do that?
If you had it with a Dataflow, probably you didn't need to do like this.
Yeah, I don't currently have it with Dataflows. Until today, I didn't know about Dataflows.
Yeah, but if you don't have a data flow, I mean, one other way of doing it would be like going to your file backend, because Power BI file behind the scene is a zip file, and you can extract that zip file, and there are some like different files, one for layout, one for, let's say, metadata, one like for every one of those. It is not supported, what I'm telling to you, to go and change that file and then save it back. You probably might do something that is, let's say, not undoable. But one of the easy way for that would be this. I would go and change it over there, zip the file again, rename it as PBIX and use it. Actually, many of these tools that you have seen used for Power BI, they are using the same thing, like Power BI Helper tool that we use, or the tool that Power BI Field Finder. Many of these are actually using those things to get those information. It's not supported way, but it is a way. If you use Dataflow, like what I mentioned today, then you won't get to those problems. In advance, you avoid those.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Anybody else have any questions or anything you're dealing with that you want to chat about?
Yeah, if I can ask another question. So is it possible, I don't recollect, like I know that if you go into the data flow in the workspace, you can see its refresh schedule. If you're connecting to a data flow, is there anything in there that tells you your refresh schedule? Because when you're looking at a data set and you're looking at the report, and Power BI is now helpfully telling you this is the last time the report refreshed. That's the last time that the data set went out and called the data flow. You don't actually know full lineage of that Dataflow data to know when it refreshed, because we're talking about governance. I'm in my Dataflow central workspace kind of checking my refresh timelines, because I'm realizing that a lot of people refresh at midnight, and my Dataflows are all set up to refresh at 1 a.m. So like all the people who are doing things at midnight are now like a full 23 hours behind like my Dataflow refresh.
Yeah, we have it in some places, but not every place. Like, for example, if you go to the place that we have list of all data flows, like somewhere like here, even in lineage, you see like here, this shows this is a data set, but if it was data flow, let me go to a place that there's a data flow. So here I can see them here refreshed, or in the lineage view, again, I can see the refresh time for that, like where is data flow? So these are data flows, right? But it doesn't give me that information when I connect to that from Power BI Desktop. Right here, for example, when I say get data from Power BI Dataflow, I don't really see when that is refreshed. That is a really good feedback, though. I might tell this to Power Query team. Hopefully they will add it in the future. But if you want to have something like that at the moment, I guess like you can have like one table in your data flow that gives you like the UTC time, so you can always consider that.
Cool.
But yeah, definitely good feedback. I'll let them know so that we can have something in the Power Query in Power BI Desktop too.
Anybody else? Questions? For those of you maybe that don't know, I just posted the ideas.powerbi.com link. Power BI, the desktop product, is updated monthly, and a lot of those updates come from us. They come from the requests from users. So if you're thinking that there's a feature that Power BI Desktop does not have that you're interested in, or that you're thinking to yourself, I can't believe this does not already exist, go ahead and check out the forum and vote for the idea or post an idea yourself. That's where the product team gets their information from to update the product.
I have a question. Hey, Rod, I have a question. This is, I guess, partly related to the data flow. So in our database, we don't have, I guess, dimension tables that been pre-built out. So we kind of have to generate those essentially on the fly using the fact table. And in the data set, we have a query that goes, let's say, fetch the fact table with everything in there. Then we have other queries which we reference kind of this initial query. So we don't have to do additional M language, etc., to say, okay, just give me some of the dimension informations. What we notice is our assumption is the first query go fetch a fact table, the subsequent reference query, we were hoping it doesn't go back to the database again. But what it does is it issue another call back to the database. We see like 2 queries running, even though we're expecting the first one to be recached. I wonder if we switch this workflow to a data flow, would the data flow do the same thing? Like if you have one build out the first kind of the fact table, does the second one, is it cached, or is it still going to issue a query to the database?
Very good question. The reference in Power Query is the reference in the code, not the reference in the data. What that means, let's say if I have my fact table getting from that SQL Server source, whatever it is, in one query, I reference from this in my second query, right? I don't need to replicate the part of code that I already did that. I just do some other code, other transformation. Altogether, this would be like a bundle of transformation. But whenever I refresh, this will package them all together, the transformations here and the transformations there together as one set of transformation for this query. Now, if you have like 5 queries referenced to that, that would be like 5 queries each. So that reference doesn't really help you to like load this first into the cache and then reload it again, right? But what I'm telling to you is more like a generic advice. Everything depends on the query folding and a lot of other things around. Yeah. Now, if you use Dataflow, still the same concept, right? You have still those queries and things like that. However, in Dataflow, we have something called computed entity, which is a really powerful concept in Dataflow. Computed entity is a type of entity that processes first, then these entities are getting data from the result of that, exactly what you are looking for. Unfortunately, this is a premium only feature. So if you already have premium, good on you, you can go and use it. If you don't have premium, that means you can use this functionality, but this is exactly what you are looking for.
Has it been released, the GA, or this is?
Computed entity, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And if you have premium, you also have like some extra options for that. There is something called enhanced computed engine. In premium setting, you can go and enable it. That means that it gives you some more compute power. You can control things around it. That is the same place that give you direct query ability to Dataflow and things like that as well.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Corey and Matthew, did you guys want to talk about the scheduled dataset refreshes?
Sure, I was hesitant to bring it up just because it's not strictly Dataflow, but maybe you know an answer. We have premium capacity, and we have a lot of different workspaces on that capacity with different scheduled dataset refreshes. But occasionally we get concurrent refresh errors when too many are scheduled at the same time. Do you know of any way that we can see a master schedule of refreshes, dataset refreshes on premium capacity?
Like seeing all the refreshes under premium capacity. I think there is one under premium capacity. It is added recently that you see all the refreshes under that.
You can see the refreshes, but you can't actually see the schedule. So you can infer that what's happening, but like you can't go out and see this is the time that everybody is like planning to hit. You can only see this is when they're all hitting simultaneously. So
yeah, and you will see like their next refresh. So based on that, you might be able to kind of guess, but it is not like that you mentioned yet.
But if somebody has something scheduled once a week, then it's just a blip. You know, you don't necessarily know exactly when it's predicted to happen. We just know that like everybody when they schedule their refresh hits at midnight. We see like midnight. So
yeah, the premium capacity metrics app is useful for seeing historic data. It's just when we're planning for the future, we're wondering when we're expecting those spikes. But yeah, thanks for discussing it.
But you can build something that is not there. That is actually how all of these tools build, Power BI Helper, Dax Studio, and things like that. You know, we have like PowerShell scripts for almost controlling anything. There is PowerShell script for connecting to your data sets, getting the refresh schedule out of it. You can export that into, let's say, a CSV file, then build a Power BI report of all of those that are refreshing at 1 a.m. and things like that. You have to spend some time to build it, but even if it is not available right now, you can do it. Maybe you build the next Power BI tool.
I like the challenge. I'll see what I can do.
You've got 50 people on the line willing to help you out with it. Anybody else? The line's totally open. Questions, comments? It does not have to be related to data flows or data sets.
I'll ask one more question about that is about data flows. So since we're talking about performance metrics, one of the things that we've been encountering is that it's like I occasionally get random like data flow refresh errors. The data set refresh errors are a little bit easier to troubleshoot. The data flow refresh errors are a little more obscure. And I don't know if you have any suggestions for how to track those down.
as you mentioned, Dataflow refresh errors are not as visible as dataset refresh errors, because dataset refresh errors, you can open it in Power BI desktop. Sometimes you can click on refresh. Sometimes you see some information like that. Dataflow doesn't really give that information. And even if there is an error, it hides part of the error exception details. So it's a little bit harder to get those information. What I do suggest is always to have a good exception handling in your Power Query implementation in Dataflow, especially because it doesn't give you those information. I have a set of blog articles actually about how to create like an exception handling report that your dataset refresh actually runs, even if there is an error. And that is actually ideal because you don't want the error to stop the refresh. You want this to refresh, but then you probably want to show somewhere that there's an error, go and figure out why, right? So there's a set of steps you can do. It's more like Power Query. Some part of that is a little bit of scripting, but if you do those, which is a little bit of set of steps, but quite helpful, then you can make sure that at least those kind of errors doesn't happen. You still expect some kind of errors to happen, but at least this will reduce the amount of unforeseen errors that might happen.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
I don't want to monopolize. So you mentioned that this is all Azure Data Lake. What's the performance of that like in terms of concurrent hit? Because, you know, we were talking about how a data flow, setting up a data flow reduces concurrent traffic on like a source system, and so instead of everybody going in and like hitting your actual SQL database simultaneously, they can go out to the data flow, which hit it the once, but now they're all hitting the data flow simultaneously. Like what's the performance? So we are premium capacity, low tier, but like what does that, how does that factor in? Or like if you've got a bunch of different data flows set up, can you know, is it per table so that people can hit different entities simultaneously without breaking down?
Good question. So that is the interesting part. So these are saved as this type of data flows we are talking about, by the way, are what we call analytical data flow. We also have something called the standard data flow, which is different, that writes into common data services. So we won't talk about, like, let's say, advanced stuff, but a data flow that writes data into Azure Data Lake storage. If you have that premium capacity, if you enable the enhanced compute engine, one of the things that happens is that for your entities, which are like CSV files, file system is not really powerful when you do parallel queries, it will create SQL tables for those. Somewhere in the cloud storage, somewhere under your premium capacity, it will create that, and you can choose like the amount of cache you want to use for this. It will use those. When it is come in SQL, then you can have much better concurrency and things like that around it. And that whole package is called Enhanced Compute Engine, which is one of the premium capacity options. So it won't be like querying a file. It will be much faster than that. However, still like to find out what exactly like the load can be under your specific premium capacity. I think for that would be more like try and error. Trying with a specific cache depends on the size of the entities and the number of entities you have, and seeing how it works.
Awesome. We're 6 or 7 iterations through our trial and error.
For those of you that are still listening in, but you may not have any specific questions, Jamie has posted a bunch of really useful links in the chat, so feel free to check it out. Any else questions, comments? This is a low pressure, no pressure environment.
Reza, is there anything you're looking forward to that's on the horizon for Power BI? Anything coming up?
This composite model of Power BI dataset, like having multiple Power BI datasets at the same time. This is one of the major things. This is really powerful. From my point of view, there were like few milestones that we had really big things in Power BI. One was when Dataflow appeared, another when Composite Model on Direct Query appeared. But now having Composite Model on Live Connection, this is even better than that. So I think that is my next things to look into.
Reza, do we have a date for that, or is it just before the end of the summer?
The what they call it, the roadmap document, something. Yeah, that is saying in October in Dynamics 365 documentation somewhere. I don't exactly remember where, but it was mentioning something in October. So I'm not sure. Is it going to be October, let's say, private preview, general preview, or like fully available or anything like that? But I think towards the end of the year, we should have something stable.
It's so exciting. Alrighty, is there any other questions, comments?
Hi, Clay Rain here. I also have a couple questions about features that might be upcoming. At least one of these might also be a feature that I simply haven't been able to find the answer to. It might already exist, but this is a little switch from tonight's topic over to APIs, things that we would like to be able to do through the API, like refreshing a workspace app after new reports have been added. I believe that's something that would have to come down the road. But also, once new data sets have been added to a workspace, if we could then update the row-level security assignments, the roles, and assign like particular email distribution lists or security groups through the API at that point.
You can do it with XMLA endpoint if you have premium, even right now.
We do. Okay.
Because XMLA endpoint basically gives you the connection from something like SQL Server data tools, from SQL Server management tools to your dataset. So after you publish your dataset, you can connect from those tools and set up the roles and configuration for that.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say anything in terms of dynamic row-level security better to be done, or in row-level security better to be done in dynamic ways. So when you just publish your model, everything is already configured for that. You don't really need to do any extra steps, even assigning any more users or anything like that.
Thank you. And have you heard anything about possibly refreshing the updating? I mean, it's called Update app in the Power BI service, but doing that through the API.
I thought it is already available, but based on what you said,
well, I haven't found it. Doesn't mean it's not there. I just haven't found my way to it yet.
Yeah, if it is, yeah, I mean, there are lots of things happening on the API team. So I guess this would come even if it is not available. It shouldn't be far away, but I have no actually inside information to tell you. Yeah, but I won't be amazed if it is coming sometime soon.
Okay, thank you.
If it is not there already.
So Reza, if you could just give us the direct line to somebody who's working on APIs, if we could just call them at Microsoft, you know.
This is the number.
Yeah, that would be super helpful. You know,
yeah, if I knew that person, probably most of my requests already been in the line.
I thought with regional director as a title, you would at least get like a red phone or something, you know.
We get an email discussion list. We can express something. Our thoughts. But we just express our thoughts. It's up to them to think about it.
Alrighty, well, so if there are no more pressing questions, we can go ahead and start wrapping up. Reza probably needs to get about his day, and you all probably need to get about your evenings. Does anyone have anything else that they want to add before we wrap up? Okay, well, from all of us here, thank you so much, Reza, for your time and for sharing your knowledge with us. As always, it's like a wealth of knowledge and expertise, and we're so fortunate to be able to have you with us, so thank you. For everyone on the line, thanks for joining. It's so good to see all of you again, and for those of you that joined for the first time, we hope that you join us again. You can find us on Meetup. We actually don't have the schedule released for the rest of the year. But so as soon as that comes down, we will let you know what's going on. So for now, we've got a placeholder event on the calendar for July, and as soon as we have the schedule, we'll let everybody know.
Great. Thank you, Shannon, for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks so much, Reza. All right. Thanks, everybody, for spending your evening with us, or your morning.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. I will post the video in the comments of our meetup session.
Great.
All right, Reza, thank you so much. Have a good day,
evening.
and I'll be in touch.
Bye. Bye.